a sensational goal. Francis the Warranty.
The fire started at about 1 this afternoon near Blacksmiths with huge plumes of smoke billowing across Lake Macquarie. Firefighters had their work in front of them with giant palm trees exploding in the flames.
The wind's been very strong and very gusty, and it has created quite a few problems for us.
Terrified homeowners prepared for the worst. Everyone pitched in to fight the advancing flames. Houses in Cabbage Tree Palm Crescent at Pelican were just metres away from disaster.
Too close for comfort. It's the closest I've ever been to a fire, so very scary.
Luckily, the fire skirted past the houses. Meanwhile, the Pacific Highway was blocked because of the thick smoke, causing traffic to back up for kilometres. The flames came close to Aero Pelican with fears about aviation fuel. Fortunately, there were no problems. Tonight, firefighters are monitoring the situation. No property was lost, but about 20 hectares of bush was burnt out. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The year is 1905 in the small Russian village of Anateska. As sole provider for his wife and 5 daughters, Tevye, played by Malcolm Lee, regularly shares the burdens of his life with God. The musical follows the emotional journey of Tevye, his family and neighbours as they come to terms with great political and social change. As new ideas are embraced by the young, others are not so sure. The production features a cast of 35, which is supported by a small orchestra and a familiar program of songs. Fiddler on the Roof opens tonight at the Roxy Theatre and plays until November 11.
Members of the Health and Research Employees Association held a stop-work meeting at the Stockton Centre, concerned over what they claim will be a budget cut of about $6 million over the next 3 years. They're calling for the Director-General of Community Services to be sacked.
We're all at risk. You know, if you think there's employment out there in the community, well, think again, because ultimately what they want to do is privatise all community houses.
They believe maintenance jobs will be the first to go, at least 80 this year as part of a 60% cutback across the Department of Community Services. But association members claim that patients have been left out of the reckoning and will be left in dilapidated accommodation with inadequate attention to their special needs. The Stockton Centre is to close in 5 years, by which time the department expects to have placed 480 residents in community care cottages. The privatisation of such establishments also concerns hospital workers. Local members of the Health and Research Association would not be interviewed on camera, fearing reprisals from the department. On top of the cutbacks comes the extra workload of 50 more patients now housed in nearby Fort Wallace. The department was unable to find them homes before the closure of the Wattigan Centre earlier this week. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The change with the axing of the AJC is seen by the Newcastle Jockey Club as a boost for the image of the sport of kings.
I've long felt that changes were needed in New South Wales.
From the administration through to the trainers, the general feeling is that it was time for a change.
You could tell it was going to come, and I don't know, I think the change and probably a few more different faces on the committee and all that might be for the better.
The AJC, I think, has run its race. They've been a great governing body for many, many years, but there's a lot of old thinking there and a lot of people there, I think, only for the social aspects of racing.
The only concern for local racing supporters is who will replace the AJC.
So long as they make certain that they get racing people who do really know the game, that they get racing people to form this council and that it isn't like a government instrumentality.
Early indications, however, seem to suggest non-racing people will be asked onto the new control board. They're not really what you'd call racing pedigree, but on this day for the last 5 years, it's been the Clydesdales and draft horses' big day at the track.
She's a darling. She's, really nice horse, and so we're looking forward to seeing her come in right out front or pretty close to it.
Country music crooner Reg Lindsay entered Super Sally in the pit horse derby at the Cessnock Racecourse in the Hunter Valley. Pit horses used to be used to haul coal underground, but they've been superseded with technology. They're renowned for their great strength, but there hasn't been a horse bred to carry racing commentator Gary Harley. The hot favourite was boxing promoter Bill Mordy's appropriately named horse, Bruiser.
So he'd have to be a heavyweight, and he's only 2. He's going to get twice as big as he is at the moment.
It was a 400-metre dash and Bruiser came up with no surprises, racing away from Super Sally and Mr Bojangles. But the crowd favourites were lagging a bit behind to magnificent Clydesdales in full flight. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The competitors will be hoping for better conditions tomorrow and on Sunday with little but chop on Newcastle Beach today. Last year, towering waves tested the surfers, with local product Guy Andrews coming up with a win. Guy says he's looking for the hometown advantage again this year.
It always gives a bit of a lift, when you run past the crowd and they're cheering for you. I mean, even if they're not cheering for you, but if they're cheering, it always gives you a bit of a rush and it gets you through the pain barrier.
All the top stars in the sport are in Newcastle, including Scott Reeves, Trevor Hendy and Michael King. And there is a young gun coming through, Josh Blair from Swansea Belmont, although he does have a few other things on his mind at the moment.
HSC starts on Thursday for me, so got a few days sort of leeway there after the race to recover.
The men race on Sunday with the women competing on Saturday. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Eight, 7 and 10, the Quinella 57.20, the trifecta $594.70. To Cessnock and race 9 over 1,550 metres. Nine, 2 and 1, the Quinella 29.50, the trifecta $368.40. Maitland Speedway sedan star Stu Robinson and his crew have been working round the clock to get the car ready. Last Saturday's round of the Top Gun series at the Newcastle Motordrome didn't quite go to plan for Stu.
The main thing I was thinking of was the fuel that was pouring out of the carburettor. I don't like any fire. I'm a bit frightened of fire, but I managed to turn it off as I went over.
Stu will be back this Saturday up against a record field. There are 20 races entered in the Super Sedan division.
More than 300 competitors took the plunge into Lake Macquarie this morning for the 500-metre swim, which was followed by a cycle leg of 20 kilometres. Cronulla's Chris McCormack opened up a handy lead on the bike, which was narrowed by his Cronulla club and training mate Mick Moroney coming into the final transition. The women's race developed into a similar battle, with Maureen Cummings leading off the bike into the run leg ahead of Lena Edmondson and Tracy Hargraves. The placings didn't change over the last stage, McCormack completing the course in 56.5 minutes, 30 seconds clear of Moroney. Cummings triumphed by 15 seconds from Edmondson in the women's, while Jenny Anderson and Matt Mansfield were the leading locals, both placing in the top 10. In surfing, Foster's Bo Emerton has taken out the Hot Tuna Matara Classic at Dixon Park Beach. Emerton, Shane Werner, Nelson Bays, Mitch Dorking and Queensland's Jai Gofton qualified for the final. All four were in contention going into the last 5 minutes of the event. Emerton just outpointing Werner and Dorking.
The Hunter's salinity strategy was best in the primary industry section. The strategy aims to minimise saline effluent discharge from power stations and coal mines into the Hunter River. It was established through various local and state authorities to establish acceptable standards of salinity and flow levels. Readings are taken at key points along the Hunter River and linked by computer to farmers and coal miners. Irrigators and water users can call up this information at any time and know when saline effluent discharges have been made and when acceptable levels of salinity are reached. In the community groups category, the gold winner was the Kooragang Wetland Rehabilitation Project. This scheme covers 1,300 hectares and links wetlands rehabilitation with education, recreation, research and tourism. It is hoping to provide a healthier habitat for fish and water birds through the cooperation of industry and environmental conservation. The Ocean Bounty is the largest exploration oil platform operating in Australia and has been under charter for the past 10 months from Diamond Offshore Exploration. It's 70 metres in length, stands about 100 metres tall and has a draft of 6 metres. However, it can submerge itself to a depth of 70 metres when operating. For the long tow by the tug Lady Dawn, the rig has submerged itself to 30 metres for stability. The trip north along the coast is averaging 4 knots. And the two vessels are between 5 and 10 nautical miles to sea. The combination hopes to be in Cairns within 2 weeks for a crew change, and it will take another 3 weeks to reach Kupang, east of Timor. There, the Ocean Bounty will be under contract to BHP for oil exploration.
The Metal Fabrication Workshop is a place not many women are familiar with, but it's hoped this will change. A group of Central Coast girls toured the various workshops as part of a plan to introduce women to a wider range of employment possibilities. According to Women's Strategy Officer Deborah Hurd, female workers add a different dimension to the workplace.
Women have a lot to offer in a male-dominated workplace. They change the culture quite a bit, and employers are starting to recognise this.
The Year 7 students are being targeted at an early age before they accept the traditional stereotypes of jobs.
Basically, peer group pressure starts to set in around about Year 9, and the girls are starting to look at the stereotyped careers, and we hope that we can possibly give them another option.
The response from the future trade workers was enthusiastic.
I suppose if girls want to do that kind of stuff, go for it. Boys and that are giving girls more of a go on that to do these things. Girls are taking the opportunity.
It's hoped the TAFE tours will be implemented in other colleges in the state. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
The proposal to split the $12 billion Pacific Power organisation was first announced by the state government 2 months ago. Today, the plan to form two competing companies from it came a step closer when it was endorsed by Cabinet. Under the scheme, the Liddell and Bayswater power stations near Muswellbrook will be amalgamated into one company, and the plants at Araring, Vales Point and Munmora will combine with Wallerawang and Point Piper in the competing organisation. A longer-term plan could see Araring on Lake Macquarie go out on its own to form a third company with an interstate electricity producer. State Energy Minister Michael Egan says the breakup will make New South Wales more competitive when the national competition starts next July. But the move has angered power workers and the Public Service Association, which today labelled the split crazy, saying there was no evidence the breakup would be successful. But while the scheme has been approved by Cabinet, it now has to win the support of the Labor caucus, which meets on Thursday. If it's given the go-ahead, the scheme will go before Parliament before the end of the year. And if passed, the two new power companies are expected to be operating by next March. Anne Lewis, NBN News.
Ninnis, seen here matching up with Tony Jensen, has played a vital role in Adelaide's success in recent years and will spend the day in Newcastle as a guest of the Falcons. Ironically, it's Adelaide who appear to be standing between Newcastle and Jensen, continuing their association. The 36ers are keen to gain Jensen's services and he'll make a decision by the end of the week. McLean's 3-year deal adds to the signatures of Butch Hayes and Sean Dennis for next season. While the Falcons are still deciding on their lineup for next season, the Knights appear to have settled on theirs. The club is almost certain not to pursue any big names to fill the void left by Parramatta-bound centre Nathan Barnes. Instead, they'll rely on local talent and are negotiating with several outside backs from Queensland.
As far as I'm concerned, the major players have been signed in Grief and Jackson, and we're looking at younger people to fill the void in the outside backs, and hopefully get some progression through the years.
And the club has no qualms about supplying both hookers for Saturday's World Cup final at Wembley, with future teammates Andrew Johns and Lee Jackson set to pack down against each other.
They won't both be playing hooker, that's for sure. One will be in the 7 jumper and one will be in the 9 jumper.
Quinton Bryce met parents and early childhood workers at the Carinya Centre on the Newcastle campus of the Hunter Institute of Technology. Ms Bryce is the head of the National Childcare Accreditation Council, which is working towards the upgrading of standards in more than 3,500 centres around Australia, looking after children for a minimum of 8 hours a day.
All long daycare centres that want to be eligible for childcare assistance have to participate in the program, and its purpose is to, well, as its name says, to work on improvement in the quality of care.
Ms Bryce's visit came after a recent incident at Mount Hutton, where a preschool was allegedly given a basic report from the council because of its policy of having children say grace before lunch. According to Ms Bryce, the incident was blown out of proportion. She said the decision to say grace was not one for the council, but the choice of individual childcare centres and parents.
Those decisions are made when the philosophy and goals of the centre are being established.
Anne Lewis, NBN News.
The top guns in Aussie soccer were in Newcastle today. Socceroo coach Eddie Thompson and Socceroo skipper Paul Wade. Wade says the Aussies want to repeat their last performance against the Kiwis.
That last game at Olympic Park where we beat them 3-0 was a real kick in the pants for them. We want to do it again. We want to do it in front of a big Newcastle crowd.
The Kiwi clash is set down for November 15. It's been 3 years since the last international was played in Newcastle. The Aussies grabbed a goal feast against the Solomon Islands. Meanwhile, Paul Wade today explained why he missed out on playing for Newcastle this year, saying he didn't fit in with Breakers coach John Cosmina.
I was signed, sealed and delivered almost. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I certainly wasn't Cosy, but we have nothing against each other. It was just a professional decision that he made and one that I had to accept.
Cosmina made the most of Eddie Thompson's visit today, making sure he realised the potential of young players in the region.
Because he was giving me a hard time this morning, I've got to include a couple of the lads in the youth games, a youth team and the Olympic team, and potential for the next under-17s. And
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The disused dairy owned by Australian Cooperative Foods was cordoned off after maintenance workers discovered the leak just after 8:30 this morning. Newcastle's hazmat unit rushed to the scene to help Wyong's fire brigade. Officers wearing protective clothing went into the building to seal the leak on the gauge of the 400-litre gas tank.
The gas does have a problem if it does get on your skin.
The clean-up continued throughout the day with water used to break down the gas. The operation has been described as a success, with the gas causing no damage to people or the environment.
No one's been overcome. We have the ambulance service standing by purely as a precaution for our own personnel because they're wearing gas suits and air sets.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Fourteen teams, 3 more than last year, are competing for the state title. The players have come from as far south as Albury, west to Broken Hill and north to Lismore.
Last year we had the non-government schools participating in our regional teams and this year it's been re-looked at and they actually come in at the state carnival level, which is far better because that allows 3 extra teams to come in.
The competition started yesterday with the teams split into 2 pools.
The metropolitan regions are basically the strong regions because they have greater exposure to competition, but the country regions, depending on how the children are as they're coming through, fluctuate between some very strong players and some developmental players.
At the end of day 2 of the carnival, Metropolitan North and South were leading Pool A with 17 points apiece. In Pool B, Metropolitan South West was 2 points ahead of Met East. The competition continues tomorrow with the finals expected to get underway after lunch.
And Fitrion just hung on to take the cup from Section and Coachwood, a healthy quinella, and how about that trifecta? $7,676.30. To Randwick Race 4, over 1,800 metres. Proud bar from Hilltops and Revenge. Hilltops taking the loss badly. The alternative music scene in Newcastle has struck gold, and it's mainly due to a group of teenagers from Merriweather.
With the emergence of bands like Silverchair, younger bands around the place are really seeing the future in music, and they're really putting their act together and getting out there and playing.
Young bands are grabbing what chances they can to be picked up by the big recording labels.
Travelling around Australia myself, there's lots of record companies, and the interest in other places around Australia is in Newcastle. What's the scene, what's happening there? It seems to be a hotbed of local talent.
It's becoming so popular there's a new music style coming out of these pubs. In the 70s there was the Detroit sound, more recently it's been the Seattle sound. This is mini Seattle, loud and alive.
Do your own thing, and just as long as you're enjoying it, doesn't matter if anyone else doesn't like it, just do your own thing.
Bands like Swallow Tongue are getting work, but it's a hard road. Some venues like the Cambridge Hotel are giving them a break. Every Wednesday night, unknown young musicians get their crack at the big time.
Combination by Kevin Pompey. On the back foot though, Pompey, poking the left out. Not a lot of venom in that. Just trying to keep his opponent at bay. Left hook. Kevin Pompey up against it.
Nowhere to hide in there, baby. Yeah. Nowhere.
Banging
left
right.
It's all over.
Down he goes.
Old European traditions were revived when goddesses of light graced the Customs House Plaza last night, the area itself a triumph of the city's foreshore redevelopment. Now there are plans to cast light on some of Newcastle's other prominent but often overlooked landmarks, and to draw people toward one big pool of light on the harbour foreshore on November the 16th. The illumination event is an environmental art project to promote the city and will feature a sunset picnic, a procession of lights and corroboree. The night is family-oriented, with children encouraged to participate in displays. Landmarks will be lit and searchlights will probe the night sky.